did you work your way from $20 to $40? That's all I want.
Well, he wouldn't accept 420.
I thought he said you could have it for free.
Yeah, at the Delta, we thought it was for free too.
No, I said 20. I said 20. I give you 20, and he paused and didn't. So that rather so then that's what I as soon as it said 40, he said okay. So there's the art of the deal. Yeah, right.
I'd like that $5 still.
Okay, well anyway, welcome everybody. I'll be glad you're back from the great storm of night 2016. And I thought it was really auspicious today because it's Ground Hog Day. And put to 20, put to 20, Puckett. Pucks-a-20. Phil did not see his shadow, according to what I read on the internet this morning. So spring is coming early. And then we just had the Iowa caucuses, And being a political junkie, I've been, I don't stay up all night with it, but I do watch MSNBC. And it's in my office where I type, it's going on the background, so it's kind of like this background noise, going on. Because I get so much metaphorical content out of politics for me. It's like what I said about the Bible and the stories of wisdom, the stories of God and everything in the Bible are written by historical people, not by gods like in Hinduism and yoga and Asian things. So it's written by human people. And so our politics to me, is like it's cosmic stories written by human people. So the way I read politics is like I would read the Bible. So there is wisdom, universal stories, morality, universal principles, universal cosmic things going on in human activity, which is the way the Greeks and the Hindus viewed us, themselves. The cosmic forces were at work in everyday life, that we're not just little animals running around eating each other or thing. You know what I mean? We're not just insignificant little things. We are all gods. There's a historical aspect to us that is born, is maintained, and dies. But there is also at the same time a universal, deathless, timeless dimension to us that's undiscovered. Because our culture only sees the historical and doesn't see the universal, which is the fault of materialism. Materialism only sees material. If you can't measure it with a ruler, it doesn't exist, you see. But you can't measure the timeless or the universal or the formless. So that has no empirical evidence. So everybody, do you have any evidence of God? You see? Do you have any evidence of the universal? Well, no, you can't measure it. So anyway, when I see politics, in life in general, I get clues to the universal. And that's a metaphor. So in that sense, we're all metaphors. Trump is a metaphor, Clinton is a metaphor, Sanders is a metaphor. And a metaphor means that it's both factual, but it's also pointing to the transcendent or something beyond the factual. So it's two. So if I say, you're a lion in this class, I don't mean that you are a physical lion, right? I mean you are a lion in the class. That's a metaphor. So what does that mean? You see, if I say you're a lion in the class, well, that could mean, well, you really roar. You speak your voice. You roar like a lion. You know, that kind of, so that would be the metaphor. So if I just said, you roar, there's more dimension to it if I say you're really a lion in the class. You see, because then that brings in all kinds of connections that we have to fill in. It's kind of like radio. I grew up on radio in the 40s. 50s TV came in, but 40s it was lying on the floor with a coloring book, listening to the Lone Ranger and the Shadow and all of the different, everybody smiling because you remember that, yeah. Well, the beauty of radio is that it's metaphorical in the sense that it gives you some facts, but it also, your imagination fills in the background. So you can imagine the Lone Ranger or the character, you know, and you fill in the scene, so you're interactive with the story. It's kind of like mom reading a bedtime story to us, you know, you're reading the story and we fill in the pictures. You see, TV comes and it fills in the pictures too. So it makes you entirely passive. I'm not doing anything now, it's doing everything for me. So that really took away, I think that's had a change in American consciousness between radio and TV, because TV makes us passive. Now it's become interactive, you notice. Internet, Facebook, social media, Twitter, all of these things are interactive technologies, which is bringing back the previous technology of radio, where you're interactive with it in a different way. But this is what people crave now. Nobody wants to just sit there and let the TV tell us everything. We want to interact with it. News too. News is interactive. Everything has changed. It's very subtle. We don't really see it and understand it because we're swimming in it. It's like the fish can't see the water. You know, so we're swimming in this technology that's changing rapidly, and we really can't see it because we're in it, you see. But it's really moving fast. But anyway, this whole idea of being interactive with our conditions is what's happening now, rather than being a consumer of conditions. You see, at the end of the 40s, the beginning of the 50s, up until now, the primary force or power of our society, the conditioning of our society, has been to create consumers. And consumers are like waves of wheat that bend with advertising and propaganda. You see, if the ad is good and it blows this way, everybody rushes to get the product. This is what Mad Men is all about. Everybody rushes to get the product because of the feeling they believe the product's going to give them, and not because they need the product. You know, the latest one, you know, watch, I keep forgetting, but I'm watching Mad Men for the second time now on Netflix. I really recommend it. It's on Netflix. They haven't put the last 6 months of it. See, has anybody seen Mad Men? 1, 2, 3, okay, yeah. Well, it's on Netflix, if you get Netflix. I watch it every day. My wife and I sit down and have a martini, and I say, let's have a Mad Men. Have a martini, we watch another Mad Men series. And they are, second time, or just as if you see a good movie, you'll want to see it again. If you see it again, you start seeing all the subtle things that you missed the first time. You start seeing the depth to it. You start seeing the metaphor. You start seeing the poetry in it. Whereas the first time you see it, you just swept up by the story. Now you begin to see the references, you know. So these Mad Men series are really, it's a continuing story, but each one is a standalone poem. So they're really visual poems in which everything is interconnected with a particular theme for that particular episode. The one I just watched was about the Jaguar. So they got this, they wanted to get a car ad. If you get a car ad, you've arrived. If you're an advertising agent, you've arrived. Every advertising agent has to have a car. So they got the Jaguar, which was a British import. And it was kind of like selling a pig with lipsticks, because the Jaguar XKE, whatever, this was in the mid-60s. The Jaguar was the XKE or whatever was a beautiful thing, but it was a piece of junk. Start, you have have to carry tools with you, you know, it was terrible, but it was beautiful. So they had to come up and sell the beauty of the Jaguar, you know, and bypass the fact that it was an unreliable car, you know. But anyway, it was, so it was that aspect, you know, of, in the 60s, this particular, the Mad Men is really documenting how American corporations were the only corporations. Everybody was buying American goods made in America. And every corporation had to have the ad that would sell their product to the consumers, who were just manipulated consumers. I mean, this is in the 50s. This is when the great, you know, when you, advertising and mass production of consumer goods, and the need to keep creating a desire for more. You know, you got a washing machine, but this is better. You know, whatever you got, it's no good now, this is better. So it's this constant activation of the desire for something better, for something more, you see, that was created in us that drives the economy. Otherwise, we would be like my Uncle Robbie, who would buy one car and kept it for 30 years, and buy one hammer and kept it for 30 years. Everything he had was his first buy, you know, and that was it. He was not a consumer. You know, well, if everybody was like that, you know, our economy would, you know, that. But anyway, okay, so let's, so I got to thinking about the confluence of Ground Hog Day. Spring is coming. We've just been through the big snow and it melted. And the Iowa caucuses, primarily with the, if you haven't heard, and if it probably hadn't changed, but anyway, the morning news was that Trump, Hillary Clinton and Sanders are a dead tie. And Trump lost to, even though Trump got over 50,000 votes, which was, that standing alone was more votes than had ever been cast in Iowa, but Cruz trumped him by a couple of thousand and got even more, you know, so Trump got trumped and Rubio came in third, you know, so now the three horses are going off to New Hampshire. Sanders and Clinton are going off neck and neck to New Hampshire, you see, where Sanders has a 10-point lead or something. But I got to thinking about how does the story of Clinton and Sanders fit into Groundhog Day? So the question we have here is Clinton now that, oh, and she shot herself in the foot again. Yeah, because last night before she left the state, she had a rally with her people and declared herself the winner before there is a winner. It's just dead heat. So yeah, we won. So now the headlines are, why did Clinton why did she jump the gun? You know, why, you know, and disingenuous, you know. That, you know, that old karmic tag, you know, coming back, you know, so Sanders is really getting, from what I read, you know, is getting, you know, having come from 0 to dead heat in 9 months is a tremendous victory. So the question is Clinton's moon waning or waxing? Is the tide incoming or outgoing? Is Sanders' tide all income? Does this represent a rising tide? Does Clinton, you see what I mean? The dynamic. The question with Clinton is it incoming or out? Is she on the way up now, or is this the sign of, not, is Sanders this, you know? So it's all up, you know, this is the fun of it, you know, how it's going to turn out, you know, so this keeps us tuned in. But the Groundhog Day in has a mythic thing to it. I mean, it's a stupid little ritual. Did y'all see the movie? Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, 1993. We should have seen that. Anybody who has not seen that? Groundhog Day with Bill Murray? We'll go to Netflix and watch it.
When you see it, you're going to be irritated until you think about it.
Well, let's talk about it. Since everybody's seen that, we have something to work with here. I mean, I love it when we have one movie in common. So I'm not spoiling it for everybody, you know.
Just a couple.
Just to refresh you a little bit on it, I printed out a summary of it, you know, so I could refresh my mind on it this morning. But it starts out with the Ground Hog Day ceremony. Is a news TV caster, and he goes there, and oh God, Bill Murray plays this. This is so stupid, I can't get out, and just hate it. And goes to bed, and there's a snowstorm, so he has to spend the night there, horrors to horrors, you know. And he wakes up to the sound of Sonny and Cher saying, "I've got you, babe." And he goes, wait a minute, you know, and he goes, this is the same day as yesterday, it's still Groundhog Day. And so he's aware that he's in a recycling of the same day, but no one else is, right? So now he can't believe, so he can't believe it's happening, but then he keeps waking up. So now he's trying to get out of it, you know, so now he's having fun and making jokes on people, and then he gets so sick of it, he commits suicide, he still wakes up, you know, and then he tries to court his producer, and he starts learning all about her, you know, so he can finally, and so then he learns languages, because this is going on for, it doesn't say how long, it could be an eternity, you know, and he's learning skills, because he's got nothing else to do. And then he starts trying to save people. And then he starts doing good. And he becomes a very famous, because he remembers everything he learned in the previous incarnation. Of course, everyone else is in this trance. They don't know, you know, but he remembers. So what he learns on the previous incarnation, he carries into this one. Hey, come in. We're talking about Groundhog Day.
Oh, okay.
Did you see that movie with Bill Murray?
Yes.
Okay, good. So anyway, the whole point is that humanity is in a sleep. It doesn't realize it's in a karmic cycle, but he does, and then he discovers the suffering of it. He can't even kill himself to get out of it, right? So this is the first noble truth. Life is suffering. He discovers the suffering of repeating himself. But no one else knows that everyone else, you see, is in the paradigm of linear time. In other words, everyone else is in the time going forward. So here's today, and then here's tomorrow, and then here's the next day. Here's where I begin, here's where I'm maintained, here's where I end, you see, is all a linear time. This is a cyclical concept of time. And this is the Eastern Buddhist Asian concept of time. Western time is historical. It begins with the Big Bang and goes to maybe when Jesus comes back. You know, or when the cosmos finally just explodes and wears out, you know, whatever. But it's a linear idea, you see. And the Eastern idea is a cycle. So this is how you get the idea of reincarnation. See, in the Western idea, you got one shot, you know. You're born, and if you don't get to Jesus or get to God in that one lifetime, that's it, you're going to hell. You get one shot. Screw up, going to hell. No retakes. Catholics fudge it a little bit and say, well, you got this purgatory. So you can go there and be in a cycle until you figure it right, you see, and then you can get to heaven. Right? But the traditional Christianity is you got one shot to get to heaven in this lifetime, and if you screw up, sorry, no retakes. Well, the Eastern idea is cyclical, like the seasons, okay? So you get when you get filled, you see, is he going to see his shadow or not? You see, if he doesn't see the shadow, spring comes. What's the shadow? It's the karma, you know. So if he doesn't see the karma, in other words, if he doesn't see clearly, he sees the shadow. I'm just making this up. you continue winter. So the winter is like this winter. I can't get out of this day.
That's beautiful.
You see, I can't get out of this pattern. Every time I meet my sister-in-law, I have this argument. I'm going to do better. I apologize. Everything happens. Oh, kiss her butt. Oh, yes. Next time we're having dinner. Pow. Back in Groundhog Day. You see, we all know, we all experience this, you know. Or we have a worry. A worry is a Groundhog Day. I can't get the worry out of my mind. A worry is a cycle. This is the classic mythological figure of the Ouroboros, which is the snake eating his tail. Round and round and round and round, you see. So that's the Groundhog Day. So we all experience this in our mind, you know, in our thinking, when we get stuck in a rut. Or we think we've, well, like the story I said about I'm going to be my own, be a yoga guru, yoga teacher, and create the yoga cycle, you see. Ended up, it was just a recycling of an old desire in a new form. It was a Groundhog Day. So we all experience Groundhog Days in our life. We have a relationship, and it goes bad. I'll never do that again. Oh, this guy or this woman is a saint. Oh, beautiful. And the next day think, you know, this is very familiar. These patterns are very familiar. And the dawning comes, Groundhog Day. So when you this whole practice we're in, of the Buddha Dharma, of the Dharma, meditation, insight meditation, is reenacting, during our own Groundhog Day. This is where the metaphor comes in, you see. If we say it's a movie, or it's intellectually interesting, oh, very nice, all that. But it's still not our metaphor. So it becomes my metaphor when I notice that I'm in a mental Groundhog Day, and I can say, Groundhog Day. So right now, the Groundhog Day movie metaphor is me. So this story helps me see through the shadow of my own karma cycle, and spring comes. And what is spring but enlightenment, or insight, or just seeing, you see. So we penetrate the karmic cycle by seeing the pattern instead of just the content. So when you look at a movie or politics or anything out there, if you just see the content, you're just seeing the history, you're just seeing the historical facts. But if you see the metaphorical dimension of it, you see the universal in it, and the universal is me. See, the universal is not out there. The universal has no measurement. It's formless. So you can't measure air. See, everything in here you can measure. I can get out a tape measure. This is so many. You're so high. You know, you're at space and time. You're there. You're there. You know, tall, short, heavy, cold, hot. You know, measurements. You know, material. You know, but at the same time, we're all made of invisible, immeasurable dimensions. We're made of consciousness, which is measured. You can't measure awareness, you see. So this awareness, so this timeless dimension comes up when we don't just focus on the historical facts, but we allow this other dimension to come through. And when that happens, we become one with what we see. And in the Buddhist tradition, this is called compassion. So how did the guy get out of the Ground Hog Day? Was through compassion. He began to focus on helping the people of the town, rather than trying to get himself out of Ground Hog Day. So when he stopped trying to get out, he woke up and he was out. So the factor is, in this practice, is that by effort, you can't get out of your karma. By personal willpower, we can't escape the cycles of time. And this reincarnation thing, now this gets a lot of people screwed up, particularly in the West, because it really conflicts with our overall understanding of what the soul is and where we're going and where we come from. The whole thing, it just doesn't fit right. Well, the way there are two in Asia and in India, reincarnation is a big deal because it's based on the idea that if you do well in this life and you do good things, you'll get a better birth next time. So even in Buddhism, Southeast Asia, and in India, a lot of but now this is the mass level of this. This is not the wisdom teachings. It is more or less the religion of the masses. Where most people live out their lives in karma. So the idea there is that you can get out of karma by doing some good works and earn merit for a better life. In Christianity, you do good works, you get with Jesus or whatever you want to do in order to get out of karma by going to heaven. See, heaven is out of karma. So either way, the idea is to get out through some personal effort. Now, of course, Christianity comes in and says that you can't get out by good works. It's by faith alone. Well, faith, in the way most people interpret it, is an act of my doing something. I'm believing in order to get something. In other words, there's always this element of getting something in it. It's very hard to get away from the idea that I have to do something in order to get out of something. Relationship, bad health, I got to do something, take some vitamins, see a different doctor. In other words, I got to do something. The idea is if you don't do anything, nothing will happen. So this, in all dimensions, there's this element in here, and the Buddha Dharma blows that out of the water. In other words, the way out of the cycle of karma or suffering is to do absolutely nothing. And that's what meditation is. When you sit to meditate, you discover that your thinking mind is trying to do something. This is boring. I should be doing something more productive. This is stupid. I'm no good at this. You see? This whole, so if you sit with the correct intention, you're going to sit through our compulsion to do something. You see? And that at some point begins to open the door out of the cycle of our trying to save ourselves, you see. And we just don't believe it can be true. So I connected this up. Well, the other thing, okay, so there's this reincarnation aspect to the Ground Hog Day that has different dimensions. The one that, this understanding reincarnation in Buddhism from more of a Zen perspective, and what I use, is that we are reincarnating ourselves every moment. And every moment I have reincarnated myself as the personality I was in the previous moment. You see? So if every moment Well, it's like you take a film, you know, if you take film and look at it, it's frames, and there's a space in between each frame, but it goes so fast, it's seamless, right? But if you slow it down, you start seeing the spaces between the moments. So, this practice, and we have this experience that people are in a immediate threat to their life, like in a war, or they're getting out of the way of a car, or something, they're on the edge of death. Time slows down. Has anybody ever had that experience where I'm getting out of here, that you look back on it, there was time changed. There was a slowing, suddenly time is different. Our sense of time changes when death is close, or something totally extraordinary happens that we never could imagine happened before. Something totally out of our karmic cycle of life, you see. Time changes, So there's this, and people always talk about that. Time stopped. When I looked into her eyes, time stopped. That kind of.
Or time drags.
Or time drags. When am I going to get out of here? Kids, time is very for a child, time is eternal. Little summer, the eternal summer. And now at our age, it's like it's February, and in 2 minutes it's going to be fall again. It could be Thanksgiving. Is that here already? So, look at the difference between youth and time and youth and age, So that gives us the idea that time is not absolute, that we're not living in time, we're creating time. We are time, you see. But anyway, this idea of reincarnation, from the way I saw it, because I don't really get into reincarnation of lives and all that, I have no direct experience of that. I had a past life for a few, I don't, without any personal experience, it's just believing somebody else, So this whole practice is applying it to your own experience, if it tastes right to you, if it's right to you, from your experience, not just hearsay or what somebody else said. But what does click with me is that we reincarnate, we maintain ourselves. Getting back to the three gods of Hinduism, Brahma the creator, Vishnu the maintainer, Shiva the destroyer. So we want to live right here. I don't want to turn this around. This is what we want to live right here and just keep everything permanent. I just want to keep it like this. We're retired. I got my little income, and I got everything. Got my little house. Got my little habits, and I go to the store, and I just want to keep that going like that, I don't want any upsets come up and break it up, but yet it's funny.
Like a house falling apart.
Something, oh my God, But anyway, this is why the double side, getting back to our snowstorm. Oh my God, a snowstorm is coming, yet when the snowstorm comes, it breaks up our karmic cycle, and the power goes off, and now we were playing Parcheesi. I never played, I hadn't played Parcheesi since I was a kid, Or a friend of mine, he lives in Richmond near the parks there, and nobody was at work. Everybody was out in the park, the kids, and they were just meeting people and having snow parties and building snowmen. It was like everybody's a kid again, And then the snow melts and everybody goes back to the thing, back to work. But that, so that break in the karma, comes from something that you can't control. Can't control snowstorms, So these are, so anyway, this whole idea of reincarnation is that we reincarnate our lives moment by moment to maintain it the way we are accustomed to it. But we like surprises. When we, just think how boring it would be if there were no surprises. Yet we don't want to be surprised because they're uncertain. Well, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Tell me the news. Well, is it bad or good? So this idea, is that we're kind of like double bind there. We want to get out of this Groundhog Day of permanence, yet at the same time, we don't want to get out of it. So anyway, so there's this hypnotic trance type of thing, where most people live, as Thoreau said, in quiet desperation. It's kind of like you're just going through the motions of life, yet you know something is missing. Something is buried that must, some jonquil down there wants to come up, but I keep stepping on it because I'm afraid of it. So it's kind of like we're in this eternal winter. Where is the spring, Another metaphor, the pairs of opposite. I keep coming back to watch some of these documentaries on Netflix, and one of them was the documentary World War I. And I think it was 4 or 5 years of trench warfare, where you have two equally, the war was about two equally strong pairs of opposites, Germany and the Western powers, right? And neither one could beat the other. So you have it's like two master tennis players who can't win. So they just, neither can defeat the other, so they just play forever. That if you have two equally weighted pairs of opposites, no one can win until there is a very subtle flaw. So you have Clinton and Sanders. It's kind of like two equally weighted forces, right? And right now they're right equal. So who is going to win, you see? So it's undetermined. It could be a very small thing that could tip. Usually that's it. If you have master tennis players or any master athletes who are in combat, the one who has just a single idea, thought of doubt would lose. The first one to have a doubt loses at that level. One thought would create the flaw where the other would win the point. It's that subtle, you see. So these pairs of opposites, so the metaphor of World War I, you see, is trench warfare, where all they did in World War I was each side tried to get a bigger and badder weapon. I got tanks. Well, I got flamethrowers. I got balloons. Well, I got planes. Well, I got a faster plane. Well, my plane, so it just kept going. Each was able to build a better or a weapon that countered the other. So it really wasn't until the exhaustion and the Americans came in that tipped the scale, you see. But anyway, that's a great metaphor for me, this trench warfare. And getting back to politics and the metaphor of politics, I really feel that America has been in trench warfare for the last 40 years between the left and the right. So if the left comes up with strength, the right comes up with one. So you get the talking heads, where on TV, where somebody on the right will say, well, this is the truth, and the one on the left will say, no, this is the truth, and both of them make sense. So, yeah. So we're kind of like, what is the truth? Well, so it could swing back and forth. Either, well, really, I think this side's got it now, but then the next day, well, so it's this. It's called in medical system when the heart does this, it's called fibrillation. It just goes. It just can't go boom, 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 or it can't stop. It can't go either one. It's go boom, boom. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So they have to shock it. Bam. So when a country, or when we get into a state of fibrillation, which is kind of like the Ground Hog Day, in the sense that he knew he was stuck, but he couldn't get out, he has to, in a medical sense, you have to shock the heart. If somebody's having a panic attack, you might just, you see this on, I've never done it, but somebody goes, I don't know what to do. Bam, wake up. Oh, okay. You know, so, you know, we lose touch, we get off in a vortex, you know, and we lose touch with the ground. You know, that, so this whole idea of being caught in this can't choose, you see, is basically a karmic cycle. You see, because you know it's suffering, but you can't get out of it because you don't want to let go of what we know. You know, we don't want to go to something entirely that unknown, you know. So tying this back up with the noble truths of Buddha, see, the first noble truth would be life is suffering, which is realizing that we're in a Ground Hog Day. Now, the Ground Hog Day, remember, could be a big cycle, like I'm doing the same relationship over again, or the same stupid job I got the same conflict with this boss that I had with the other one, or I got the same worry, you see, or the same upset with this thing that broke down that I had when that thing broke down. You see, in other words, when we detect the pattern that we're reincarnating ourselves, we are changing the cause of the suffering. When we're caught in the hypnotic trance, we believe the cause of the suffering is external. It's the situation, it's the conditions, it's that person, it's my health or whatever. You know, it's conditional, is the cause of my pain. That's the normal way. The abnormal way, or the Buddha way, is to recognize that it's the pattern that is the cause of the suffering. You know, so it's not the content, it's the pattern.
What do you mean by pattern?
That's good. Algebra will say A plus B equals
Never caught it.
C. In other words, that's a formula. That's a formula that you can plug in
Yeah,
numbers.
yeah.
All right.
Fine.
A recipe could leave blanks in there where you could put in other food, where you could use this instead of that.
Yeah.
In other words, a pattern is not form. It's the pattern that holds the form together.
The essence?
Rules of take a game. Take football. You got football is rules. You got a field and you got the rules. You got two teams, they got to behave a certain way. That's a pattern. But every game has different teams, a different stadium, different scores, different fans. So the content changes, but the pattern stays the same. See? So that would be the pattern, would be karma. So the karma of football are the rules of the game. Tennis, you got the field, you got the net, you got the racket, you got the way to score. You got the rules, but the players change. So the content changes, but the pattern stays the same. We're conditioned to see the content and believe there's no pattern because we see things linearly. In linear time, there's no pattern.
So
Yeah.
if you were using the football as an example, and there's concussions,
Yeah.
so they're changing the rules or the pattern,
Yes.
then the content of the game presumably would change.
Yeah, because what they're saying is that the cause of the concussion is suffering. Maybe not so much when you're playing, but 10 years later. Okay, so we got a suffering, and we want to remove the suffering. So what's the cause of the suffering? Is the cause of the suffering that one incident where they banged heads, or is it like you said, or is it the pattern of the game? So if you want to get rid of the concussions, you don't say, just don't bump your head. Like Reagan's wife said, the way you stop the pattern of drugs, just say no. You see, and just don't do it. So how do you stop concussions? Well, just don't do it. Well, that doesn't work. Right? So you have, so what you say there, you have to say, well, what is the pattern of the game that creates the suffering?
So
Change
the
it.
pattern of the game, if you have stress, how do you change it?
Well, games, this particular game is structured, is controlled violence.
Right.
If you take the violence out of it, you take the game out of it. People like football because of the spontaneous violence. Wow, did you see them? Yeah.
So I think connecting the dots here, the pattern you can see only when you step away from the thing or go at a 40,000 feet above. So you cannot see the pattern when you are caught in those activities. You need to step back and then you can see the pattern and
Yeah.
say, oh, I react in this fashion when this happens.
Yes.
Okay, so you see?
Yes. The other ingredient here with Ground Hog Day, flipping back to that, is that he didn't see the pattern until he stopped taking his me out of it.
Correct.
How do I get out of this Groundhog Day? That's me. I want to get out of it. What can I do? I can't even shoot myself. You see, nothing works.
No, they tell you not to.
So he stopped worrying. He accepted the Groundhog Day, and he began to think about his interconnectedness with the other people, which was stop thinking about me. And how do I get out of my suffering, you see? See what I mean? So that broke him out, you see, because the ingredient that held the pattern in place was me. See, me is the pattern. There's no me and a pattern. You see, I am the pattern, but I believe
There's some-
I'm not the pattern, that someone else is creating this pattern. My sister-in-law's doing it, you see.
current of
She's created the pattern,
material.
right? She's created the pattern. You say, I'm innocent, I'm a victim, right? Well, I'm the pattern too.
So in this case, if the other person is bringing the pain,
Yeah.
let's say, your sister-in-law, there are people who are always argumentative, right?
Yeah,
Well, and you get carried away with that, and that's why you have suffering, right? So in this case, for your sister-in-law's thing, if you choose not to get into that drama, then you will be able to avoid the pain. Is that right?
the seeing, in other words, the secret ingredient in this practice, in Buddha Dharma, in the Buddhist approach, is seeing or awareness. Now, awareness is not focused, that's consciousness. Awareness, if I'm conscious of this being separate from everything else in the room, I'm talking about this marker right here, so I can describe it to you and I can see it, hold it up. I'm talking about this, you see. I'm conscious of this, but I'm aware of the whole room without being discriminating or specifically being conscious of anything. So my awareness is 360 degrees, it's going on all the time, but my consciousness is like a searchlight. Let's talk about this. No, let's talk about this. So you see what I mean? I'm selecting these things out of this ground of awareness that isn't selecting anything. So I'm doing something with this. I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this. Then I might say this needs to be replaced, or this is worn out, or this is really good because I can click it like that, you see. So this is better than the other markers. So I'm measuring it. Good, bad, could be better. I'd be happier if I had a better one, all that stuff, I'm really, my whole life is a wreck because I have the wrong magic marker. That kind of absurdity, I need a Jaguar. The whole idea, then, but awareness is going on all the time and it's not selecting anything.
So does that mean if we're always in the awareness that we're gonna move along?
Well, just getting back to this right here. In order for me to be aware of this and talk about it, in order for me to say, do you like this magic marker, there has to be two things going on. There has to be a subject, me, who is aware of this as an object. And me as subject doesn't say, I'm the magic marker. See, I don't say, or say, I am a great magic marker. No, I say, this is a magic marker, and I'm here, right? Subject, object. But this rises out of awareness which has no subject and no object. When you're driving a car, and you're sitting in the car, I'm sitting in the car, and I'm driving a car, and I'm going around, and then I start doping off, right? And I might think, oh my God, I left the stove going, what's going to, yada, yada, yada. And then about 2 minutes down the road, I made a truck, something is going to jar me. Whoa, did I miss my turn? What, where am I? We start to reorientate. This is a kind, where am I? I'm looking for a familiar sign. Oh, there's the store. I know. Oh, I'm back. I'm back in karma. You see, but for a moment, I was drifting off in a daydream. Who was driving? Awareness was driving. But I wasn't there. I was daydreaming.
Quick question. This awareness, can you develop this? Because people have different level of awareness, right?
Yeah.
Some people, they are so aware if there's somebody's watching you, you kind of look at
Yeah.
it. Other people, they are not aware of it. So can you develop the awareness?
Well, yeah. Well, it depends on how focused you are. In other words, we do this all the time. I can be so focused on my work that I'm not aware if somebody comes in the room and gets something and goes out. I mean, we can tune out everything and just be focused on something I'm doing, and we like that. Oh boy, I'm reading this mystery novel, and I forgot all about my karma. I forgot all about my worries, you see.
And even if you are not doing something specific, you may not have that level of awareness because in your mind, you are thinking of something, you are preoccupied.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this is where the practice of meditation, of sitting, in Zen Buddhism is called Zazen, Z-A-Z-E-N, and it just means to sit. It could be in a chair, it could be on the floor, but you're doing absolutely nothing. Just like the Seinfeld skit about nothing. A skit about nothing, right? And so that was a big joke, because we always think, well, what, you can't be nothing, it's got to be something. No, when you sit in meditation, the me begins to be exposed because the sitting is aware. I'm sitting in awareness, my aim, let's put it this way. When we sit in meditation, I'm aiming to do nothing, but I'm still awake. So in the beginning of Yoga Nidra, it sets you up by saying, I'm awake, aware, and I welcome every perception, which is every thought. Now, if I welcome every thought, that means I welcome the good and the bad. So that's equanimity. So if I'm stuck in the Ground Hog Day, he's stuck in it because it's bad. He doesn't like it. You see? So he wants to get out of it. So now he's got to struggle. You see? So when we sit to meditate or do Yoga Nidra, the aim is to just sit in awareness and let the thinking mind, that's me having thoughts about something, begin to just loosen and relax a little bit. Be not so important. It's not so important, because it's just thought. The only reality is my sitting here. The present moment is my sitting, you see. And now I'm aware of time in my mind. Now I'm thinking, oh my God, I got to do this and that. or I should have done that, and, you know, now this is gonna come and haunt me, and yada, 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 yada. You know, see, that's time. The sitting is timeless. Just now. We're always just now. See, every moment is just now. You know, there's no time here. Time comes in when I start thinking about now. Now it's got a past,
So it's
future,
negativity, it's
negativity, positive, negative, the pairs of opposites, you see. And when we get into a worry, it's trench warfare.
right,
We've got, I should do this, or I should do that.
and that's anxiety.
Anxiety because I don't know what to do.
Right.
And we can't get out of it because you can't change it.
No, you can't,
You know, and so when you see that,
yeah,
it's like a snowstorm. When the snowstorm comes, I can't get out of it.
right.
I have to accept it. And there's a joy in that. The power's out, I'm blown out, can't get out of the driveway. You know, let's make a snowball. You know what I mean? You know, let's play. So when you play, you accept the conditions.
Right.
There's no good or bad in play. You can have imaginary good and bad, but I mean, when you play, you accept the conditions that are given and you make something out of it. You have some fun with it. But behind it, you see, is this awareness that it's okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's okay. So that awareness basically is, it's okay.
Can you talk about the hypnotic trance for a little bit? About-
Yeah, all right, so this,
And is it
we can see this in politics today, where you have followers. You know. And so, or you could see it in, when I watch the documentaries, there's a lot of documentaries on Hitler, and, because they filmed everything. So if you go back and look at the German people in the 30s, when Hitler came by, it was like the Beatles. I mean, how, you know, and the kids and the girls and the men and the whole crowd, everybody was just in a state of ecstasy. You know, it was the Beatles, it was God, it was Jesus coming back, you know. It was a rock star, it was all combined, you see. So you can see that ecstatic face of people in rapture. We can see now that that was the hypnotic trance. Of course, when you're in it, it wasn't. You know, but we can look now and say they were hypnotized. You know, they were hypnotized by this metaphoric symbol of a God, a savior, you know, who'd come to save the German people, you know, and unify the country, you know, the whole thing. So that was a hypnotic trance. So anytime we get caught up in a guru fixation or savior fixation of a human person, you see, we can get caught up in a trance.
Is that kind of what's happening with the people that are so excited about Trump? You know what?
Well, sure, and Sanders too.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Both sides are creating, and Obama did people hold, you think Obama's your savior, you know, the whole idea that Reagan did it, the whole idea of here comes the savior on the horse, the cowboy, Shane, he's coming in to clean up the pairs of opposites of good and evil. See, the town's caught in trench warfare. The ranchers and the sheep herders or whatever, you know. Shane comes in and breaks them out of this hypnotic trance or trench warfare, and life goes on. You know, the flowers bloom, but he leaves, you see. Shane, come back. So the hero savior comes in, fixes everything, and then leaves, you see. That's the American myth. You know, so political figures can play into that. You know, I can be coming in from the outside to fix the broken society that's caught in trench warfare. And I'll fix it and make it right through. Trump says I'll make it right through the sheer power of my will. I won't tell you how to do it, I'll just do it because I'm Trump. That's all you need to know. And a lot of people like that.
Well, we think about it a little bit. how does he can't tell them how he's gonna fix
But
it.
he doesn't know how he's gonna fix
That's
it.
right, until he gets into the meeting and talks about it.
He doesn't know,
It's a chance you
he
take.
doesn't know, here again, he's a conditional person. He doesn't know what he's gonna do until he does it.
Exactly.
It's trying to make the public believe it.
Yeah, most of us
It's a
really,
fake.
yeah, but most of us, we can say hands on the conditions, and the conditions are not here yet. That's why answering hypothetical questions like, what would you do if something happened? You know, I don't know what I would do. You know, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
But who gets a hypo of politics?
Yeah,
They're human like me.
exactly.
Isn't it almost,
I'm sorry.
isn't it almost irresponsible, like in chess, game
Yeah.
of chess? You don't play something unless you have thought of 3 steps ahead of what you're playing,
Right.
right? That is strategy.
He's trying to get so he can
Yeah.
see.
Same thing with
More
Trump, you
popular.
cannot just say, oh, I will revamp the Obamacare. You have to think through, how would you do it? I mean, how can you speak?
Well, see, now Trump doesn't, he's not a politician
No.
or a statesman. He is a media master. He is a showman. He runs reality TV. He runs a beauty pageant. He knows the media. He's been doing this his whole life.
Right.
He knows that if he says this, the media is going to do this. And his whole strategy, and he'll tell you this,
How could someone vote for him?
Yeah.
It's a
I
fake.
think a lot of people will believe this.
well, anyway, this, so he, he's like the, you got a bunch of actors on stage, and there's only one spotlight. Everyone else is in the dark. So how do you stay in the spotlight? Well, he knows how to stay in the spotlight by being on program. He doesn't use script, he doesn't use teleprompters, he doesn't know what he's gonna say. It's just like me, I'm Trump. I have no idea what I'm gonna say until I'm standing here in front of you.
I'll take you over Trump.
This is not planned.
But you make sense, you know?
Well,
How does this relate to the when people say that they hypnotize you and you go back in time? How does this relate to that? Just hypnotic trance? How does
that hypnotic trance, well, the Eastern traditions say that humanity is in a dream. You know, that we're all in a dream of karma. We believe we're awake, but we're really asleep. And it doesn't mean that we're, and a lot of the movies play on this, zombies waking up, all of the horror movies and science fiction, The Matrix, all of them play, that was a great one, The Matrix all play on the fact that humanity is basically asleep, that we are asleep to the real reality. So that what we are asleep to is that we have a collective consciousness, there is no individual consciousness, which is me, and then we all live in a collective consciousness, which has layers. It's like a Russian nesting doll. So there's the collective consciousness of my family, so when we're together and a family's together, maybe a strong family identity. So I only feel at home when I'm in that consciousness, and then there's the collective consciousness of my region, my tribe. If you're a Southerner, the collective consciousness of the South. If you're other, or like the Sunnis and the Shias are both collective consciousness. They're religious tribes. If you go to India, it's full of different ethnic languages, identities. Burma, or all of these different nations, all of these, they're ethnic tribes, they're collective consciousness. And then you get wider ones. So America is not so much of a, like there's American collective consciousness, which to be American, and so immigrants come in, and they, Eastern European immigrants, they come in, different immigrants come in, and they begin to identify with the collective kind, which is called like being American, and they leave, to a certain degree, the collective consciousness of their past, The immigrants that try to maintain their collective consciousness run into conflict with the American exceptionalism, which is what the Muslims are having trouble with, because the Islam is a lifestyle that gives them a faith and a centering, which requires this particular behavior changes, like praying 7 times a day and wearing a shawl, you see. Or I remember when I first became a vegetarian in 1970, I ran smack up against the American collective consciousness that's meat eating. It was un-American. What do you mean you're not eating meat? Is something wrong with meat? You're not going to eat that steak? Give me that thing. I was sitting at a dinner for business dinner or something. We were sitting like here, you know, we had some filet mignons and some judge sitting over there said I was vegetarian. I had the steak there. He looked at me, you're not going to eat that? Stab that sucker. Well,
Cannibalism.
right, so, you know, so vegetarianism is now part of the collective. It's accepted, you know, even in Blackstone. You can get a vegetarian meal, you know, but I mean, this took a while for this to be assimilated. So there's this collective American consciousness, and there's the assimilation into it, whether you, however, how much you maintain of your previous where you feel at home. Are you willing to give up home in order to live here? You probably, you know, that, are you willing to give up your tribe, you see? Americans going into a political conflict now because there's a Southern consciousness that is in conflict with the collective general consciousness, you see. So you get the Southern, or maybe Christian or Southern value system, which is a collective value system that's in conflict with the majority. You know, take abortion. You see, abortion then becomes a value of a collective that's in conflict with the general, more laissez-faire, it's up to the person, you know, thing. You know, so you get all these things that's going on in our country, you see, which is a battle of what do you feel at home with? Who do you feel at home with? Well, if a collective nation divides, you see, into 2 contradictory value systems, which has happened in our culture, you get trench warfare, where each argues that their value system is the correct one, you see. So then all they do is just come up with more weapons to throw at each other.
But the problem is, when one side wins over the other, they just still stay in trench warfare.
Yeah, that's because you can't do it. It's like Siamese twins.
Yeah.
Who's going to be number one? You see, because there's the drive of life. There are 2. Well, get it off. We're not even getting to our meditation. Okay. You know, there's 2 drives in life. One of them is to be the unique number one. This is a big American principle. America, number one. All the sports, number one. You know, my team, number one. So everybody's holding up their finger. I'm number one. America, USA, USA. You see, number one. Number one means that it's a number one, you see? Rocky. Right? Well, everybody else, in order for me to be number one, you see, everybody else has got to be down here. And they all want to be number one too. So this is competition, and it creates excellence, which is an American ideal. Nothing wrong with this. It creates competition, it creates excellence and everything. However, it misses the other side. And the other side is that we all want to be one together. You see? We all want to be part of a group. We all want to be part of a family. We all want to be part of a religion. We all want to be part of something bigger than me. Whatever that something is, you see. So you can't be, here's the conflict. I can't be part of something and be separate from something at the same time. See, I can't be number one and not number one at the same time. And if we don't understand this, it creates neurosis. I'm in eternal conflict with everybody, trying to answer the value of being number one, at the same time denying myself belonging to anybody. So I'm continually outside and inside at the same time, and that creates a neurosis. A neurosis is a conflict that cannot be solved. Yeah.
I think I'm experiencing a neurosis. It reminds me of when I first started college and took philosophy, and I thought, why on earth are we asking these questions that simply can't be answered?
Yeah.
Then she mentioned hypnosis, and I thought of Edgar Casey and that place down in Virginia
Yeah,
Beach,
yeah.
where they go back past
Yeah.
lives. It seems to me that I keep looking for this truth that says there's a reason to live and to reproduce, to make more people. And if you knew that in fact there was a truth that Edgar Casey did
Mhm.
allow you to experience past lives, if that was true, wouldn't I feel much better? Then I think
Probably
if I had
not.
to work so, yeah, if I had to work so hard in this life, do I really want to do it again?
Well, first of all, I had the first, when I minored in philosophy, and I had that same realization, because it was like every new philosophy built on the previous one, but it had no conclusive resolution. So it was always kicking the can down the road, but that's one thing. The other thing is Edgar Casey. I used to go down there, and Edgar Casey was remarkable because he bypassed me. He bypassed the ego by going to sleep or going into a trance. And then he would talk, and people would record what he said outside of his personality. So in other words, he wasn't doing anything. He was able to put his personality aside and just tap into this wisdom or whatever, whether you agree with what he said or not, you know. But the fact was that he would go into a meditation where he was not doing anything. So getting back to our practice, you see, he was not doing anything. There was no fame. There's no, I did it, I'm so smart. You know, I'm a great guru or something. There was no personality there.
Is that what happens when they say that they hypnotize somebody
Yeah.
to make them
Right.
lose their me and then just talk? Is that what?
Yeah, well, a hypnotist, and I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding of that is that a hypnotist, through the power of suggestion, if a person has an ego center that is very suggestible, can be bypassed. So that it's yoga nidra. Not that they're hypnotizing you, but when the instructor says, let my voice be your voice, he's relieving you from your personality. Oh, I don't have to think about my problems. I can just take a little vacation here and do nothing. You see? I can get out by just not having to do anything. Now the me is the doer. In other words, President Bush, I remember his famous thing, I'm the decider. In other words, if I decide to go to war, it's okay because I decided it. Nixon said that. If the president does something, it's legal because the president does it.
And it turns
See,
out not
Trump
so
is saying that. Trump says it in that sense. If I decide to do it, it's okay because I'm doing it. You see, in other words, so if we speak from the doer, my personal will, I'm doing it, I'm fixing it, and it's right because I'm doing it. No authorities, I don't have to listen to anybody. I'm the authority. I'm number one. If I believe I'm number one, then who am I going to listen to? Number two? Or three or four? You see, I'm number one. I'm the decider. Right?
But how does it get the person to talk? You know, when somebody's trying to hypnotize you, and then how does Why does that person talk or go back? When he loses his knee, but he still got to talk.
I don't know, but I'll tell you this here. All right.
Okay, it's,
So the next time you hear a bell, you're going to crow like a chicken.
Next time you do what?
You're a
You know, people can say what they want about hypnosis, but when I was in 6th grade, a hypnotist came to our school, and people out of our audience, volunteers out of the audience, went up on the stage, and he hypnotized people. Some of the people did not go under. Some of them went under so unbelievably that I was stunned. And some of the things that some of those people did and follow up just blew my mind. I remembered it like I was there yesterday.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. But some people do become really deeply hypnotized. Others, I think if I was up there, I don't think I could have gone under. I can't concentrate that hard.
Well, that, now again, I have no idea what this means. I'm just speaking from, but it's a basic, there has to be an element of surrendering, when a hypnotist has to be speaking from a very centered command center. In other words, they're speaking with at a level of consciousness that is under superficial consciousness. Or just like with Yoga Nidra, when he says, let my voice be your voice, there is a certain assurance and comfort and rest in that. You're not going to, if you sit there and argue with everything he says, well, that's stupid.
You need to be open.
Huh?
You need to be open.
Yeah, in other words, there's a willing surrender in Yoga Nidra because, well, you trust me, I hope, that I'm not giving you a satanic brainwash here, which will start making you do things that you don't want to do because they're written between the lines that you can't, like if you play it backwards, it's, if you play this backwards, it's going to be telling you some terrible, don't play, it's not doing that. But in other words, so there's a certain trust that we're setting up here, and then he comes along and says, okay, if you want to do this practice, we're just going to relax and just let my voice be your voice. So there is a willing, there's a willing surrender, okay, feels good, I don't have to think about my problems, I can just, just let my awareness, he's opening up awareness. Instead of thinking about this or that, he's just opening up presence of awareness. It's like that old iced tea commercial where you fall into the iced tea, you see, you just fall into that relaxed awareness. It's okay, you see. So that, I think there must be that element in, because there's a surrender, if I don't, if I don't have the willful surrender, that can't happen, you see. So a strong ego is not going to surrender.
We're not saying anything about him.
See what I mean? A strong, some people can't be hypnotized because they have a strong ego center, and it withstands the wind of the hypnotist, they're not bent over.
These people who are not so open, right? Some people are very open to, and you can feel that. Some people are not, they are like
Yeah.
closed.
Yeah, my son refused to be hypnotized. We used
It's
to.
that strong ego.
Yeah.
People who are closed people, are that the same as strong ego?
Well, I don't know. I'll give you an example. Take my son. We used to take him to the ashram with Swami Muktananda. And there'd be 1,000 people in there chanting. And he'd be, he's maybe 13 or 14, and he'd be sitting in the middle of, with 1,000 people chanting, and he'd be reading a comic book.
Whatever.
like a little,
strong individual.
like a little island, in this sound body, and just everybody's caught up in this big trance, the trance of the chant. Chanting is trancing, chanting. Gregorian chants, that's why people do chanting, either in the East or the West. Rock music does this. Rock music, my daughter is a sings the lead singer for Led Zeppelin, and you play Led Zeppelin music with the speakers going full blast, you're down there in the pit, you go into a trance. You become the music. There's no me thinking about your worries, you know, there's no worries in there. You know, it's just, you know, you become the music, you know, so that, there's a definite practice of that, you know. But yeah, so that's my control. I will not give up my power. My wife and I had we have these little dramas over control. It was interesting the other day. Little simple things. I mean, there's so little simple things have these rather exterior dimensions. So she wants me to go when we leave here, I'm going to Hobby Lobby in order to get some clear cups, mugs that she likes to put a stencil on and do an initial to give to people to give, you know, like J or something, but she needed a clear mug, you know, so go to Hobby, okay. So she said, you know where it is? And I said, yeah, it's after Woodlake. And she said, no. It's near Panera's, in the shopping center. This is on 360. And I said, well, I know where Panera's was because the last time I was here, I had to go to Panera's, and I went right by it and went to the other shopping center down by Lowe's. And so I know where Panera's is, and the Hobby Lobby's next to Panera's, and it's near that Woodlake intersection. Traffic said, no, it's this. So she gets, no, that's not right. So she gets the map out, and she's pointing it out, you know. Well, I had misnamed the Woodlake to with the other intersection there with the Brandermill. There's the Brandermill intersection, and then there's the Woodlake, you know, where the lake is down there. Well, anyway, this is right after Brandermill instead of Woodlake, you know. So she was right and I was right, but I had skewed the whole conversation because I had misnamed the marker that described where the thing was, you see. But it ended up, you know, in this fight for right, you see. So the whole thing, so I was kind of like laughing. I thought, this is really funny, you know. So that's what I mean about this, you know, these little things could cause a divorce. If they get exaggerated, you know, people shoot each other over this. Really.
It is always the small things.
Yeah.
It is always the small things that come in the way.
Yeah, but the awareness,
They build up.
the awareness is like a pond that floats this iceberg. You see, so these little karmic pairs of opposites, that was a pair of opposites. She's an opposite, I'm an opposite. Who's number one? Who's right? I'm right. No, I'm right. You see. But when awareness is awake, there is humor. It floats on humor. Or you could say love or humor or whatever, you see. But the humor does not take sides. You see? The humor is equanimity. It sees the humor in the whole situation. It sees the humor in the trench warfare, sees the humor in the reincarnation, sees the humor in everything. And getting back to your question, you see, that humor is the truth. You see, when that humor is awakened, you see the humor behind, you see the truth behind the untruth.
So then both sides are happy because they're laughing.
The truth is both of them together, and only humor sees that.
Oh.
But me is part of the pair of, me is one of the opposites.
The other may not find the humor, I suppose. But like, I think of Fox News versus you said you watch MSNBC.
Yeah.
The truth with MSNBC is you're almost surely going to have a certain set of views. And if you watch Fox News, you're going to have a certain, exactly opposite set of views.
Yeah.
Could you convince a person who has Fox or MSNBC that the other side had merit? I found that when I listen between the two,
Yeah.
and I find that what I thought was unreasonable today might have some reason if I listen to both sides.
Yeah, exactly. See, when you have a pair of opposites, or when you have my favorite symbol, you see, like two fish. See, this is not a static symbol. This is this symbol here. It's We could call it a cycle. So it's a karmic cycle. It's repeating itself. Nobody's getting out. Everybody's trying to get out by beating down the other side, you see. So human life is made up of these little karmic cycles. Our life is made up of the inside and outside, little ones and big ones. It's like little whirlpools. So if I have a worry, I have a little whirlpool going. I can't stop it with thinking. If I have a recurring conflict with a neighbor, I have a karmic reenactment. I'm reenacting the conflict, thinking I'm doing something different, but I'm really just doing the same thing. I'm reenacting the Civil War. I'm reenacting the trench warfare. So how do you break out of it, you see, is that the background here that holds this is humor, and humor comes out of seeing. So when I see the pattern, which includes me, I don't have to do anything. The seeing breaks me out because I'm both inside and outside. If I see the pattern, I'm still me, but I'm also I. I am aware of me. But me only exists in karmic patterns. Me does not exist outside of karma, which is history, which is form, which is linear time. You see, me exists in time, in history, as a specific form. See, each of us is a form that will never exist again. We never existed before, and we won't exist after in this form, because this form is dependent upon the conditions we live in. See, we're not living in Roman times. If we lived in Roman times, we would be a different form. You see, so we are unique to the conditions of this time, this nation, the collectives I live in, the families, my personal history, the choices I've made. You see, all of these are the conditions upon which I'm contingent. So I'm uniquely dependent upon the conditions that I exist in, which is, we're all dependent upon this, our intent to come to the class. We're dependent upon this form, this structure. We're dependent upon the weather that allowed us to come here today, on my health that allowed us to come, on the fact that there were no upsets in my life that prevented me from coming. So there's a lot of contingents, you see, that allowed us to be here. We're not separate things that just came here. We are the conditions that allow this to happen, you see. So we're contingent beings, which means we are in history, yet there is a dimension to us that is primarily asleep, that is not contingent upon conditions, that is universal, awake and aware, and you could say enlightened or deathless or timeless, you see. Yeah.
That reminds me of when Obama made the statement that you did not build this yourself, and everybody just got so
Been out of shape.
been out of shape. And I thought, well, I guess it was, they didn't see the backside of it or the side of it, and he didn't explain it.
Right.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that really points to the pairs of opposites in our culture today, which we're witnessing of, and we can, since we've been around a while, we can see this from a perspective that younger people can't see, because they're just in it and they think this is the way it's always been, you see. But we have more context here, and the two pairs of opposites you see are, well, Trump and Sanders really do personify the two. Trump is saying, I'm doing it all myself. If I built a business and I built the tallest tower, I did it. I got my name on it. I don't owe anybody. I wasn't, I did it. Sanders is saying, no, you didn't do it. The workers who built the building the workers who made the roads where your bulldozers could ride on, all of the contingencies, all of the collective, all of the ingredients to this created the conditions so you could build that building. So you are really, even though you got a name on the building, it's really dependent upon the conditions that allowed you to build it. Just like your being here is contingent upon the health, the weather, whether or not the building has power, you know, and all these things. If you start digging into it, it's infinite. You can't stop, you know. Like, this building is here because of the school that was here, and because of the parents that gave birth to the children that came here, and the workers that built the school. You know, how far do you want to go back, you see? And the fact that we got here safely is contingent upon nobody doping off and hitting you in the car. You see, so all of these contingents, you see, allow us to be here, but we say I'm here and nobody, you know, I'm kind of like things. So there's a two dimensions. So Trump is right, and Obama or Sanders is right, you see. So both are right, they both are together, but we're splitting these two apart, you see, in our national dialogue. The Republicans say, no, the individual is number one, he's doing it all. And the Democrats say, no, the workers and society and the contingency of the whole infrastructure, education, the whole thing is doing it. And so what the other one says, no, you're wrong, and no, you're wrong. And it's really both of them together. So hopefully we've got, and this is called transcendence. In other words, this is a trench warfare. So we're stuck in trench warfare, and this political time we're in really is asking the American people whether we want to continue the trench warfare for another 8 years, or do we want to just drop it. The only way to drop trench warfare is to bypass it. One of my favorite sayings is when you encounter dysfunction, don't fight it, bypass it. So trench warfare is dysfunctional. No. Don't get in there and fight it by adding more to one side. You just bypass it.
Well, how do you bypass it? Do you make another plan?
Well, yeah, have a plan or whatever, but you just don't engage it. Hitler won the first part of World War II because France was setting up. They knew Germany was building up. So they set up for another trench warfare. They built a Maginot Line. A whole line of forts all the way down the border of France. Well, this is going to stop them. So Hitler just bypassed it. Just went around the corner. He was like an end run. He just went an end run around it, you know. And it's like in football. You got your thing, you're locked in thing. The end run would be running around. You just bypass it. You don't go into it, you see. So this whole dysfunction is when you have two equal opposites, neither one of which can be number one. So worry is that when I'm worried, I've got two opposites trying to be number one, which would be I know what to do. See, when I know what to do, I'm number one. If I don't know what to do, I'm split.
And talking about split.
Thank you. Okay, this has been a nice, we've really, yeah.
No, I'll say that.
Anyway, this is, had a lot of fun today. We've covered a lot of ground. You've been very good, very
Do we
attentive.
have time for meditation or not?
Well, it's 1 o'clock. Wait a minute.
We can do it.
When do we leave? When do we leave here?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock? Okay. Yeah. I think we'll close up. Anyway, may you all have a spring, an early spring. In your, oh, by the way, I forgot to hand this out. This is some of you may have this, but this is a Jack Cornfield, and it's a little series of instructions on how to meditate. Gives you some nice, a little different from the Yoga Nidra.
I wanted to ask you.
It's more of a traditional meditation and how, what it is and how to do it.
Decide how to, you were talking about listening to Fox, listening to MSNBC. What kind of conclusion did you come to? We've already.
I think we're.